Hey everybody, I guess we'll start this off. Today we'll be looking at Figma, which is something that it's basically an alternative to Sketch. It's a UI program, and UI design program. There's a lot more to it than Sketch has base, and there's some downfalls opposed to Sketch, and I'll kind of go through all those as we carry along through the app.
Oh yeah,
That makes sense, and I'm hoping I'm not gonna be able to look at chat the whole time, so I'm hoping if there's any questions in chat that people will relay them to me, and I will be happy to answer them. So please, and anyone who's in the chat, in the Google call, feel free to pop in with any questions as well along the way.
Is there anybody that can be watching the chat that can for sure be the point to checking that?
I don't know if somebody wants to have that open in a. You can pop out the chat.
I don't think anyone. I have the thing up, but it's just no one's.
Okay, well, if anybody asks, let me know. All right, sweet. So one of the main things that's different with Figma opposed to things like Sketch is that there's a Mac and a PC version, but there's also a web app version. So anybody can access it no matter what, which is great in a team setting because you can share things with developers, for example, really easily. You don't have to worry about them having the program. And that's a view-only link. You can send share edit links, but you can also share only view links. So you can share hey, look at this mockup, and then they can look at it. And there's some tools in Figma to help them out too. And again, I'll go through those along the way. So yeah, and again, it has a PC version, which is an upside opposed to Sketch, which does not have a PC version. Just saying. Anyway, all right, I'm sorry, I won't throw the shade. This has problems. There's no plugins. So just accept that now. No plugins, so we can't do all those fun, crazy, time-saving in some ways things. But I would counter-argue that with there are other things that save you time in the long term that Figma has that Sketch doesn't. Anyway, okay, so this is kind of the main interface of Figma. This is what you pop into when you look at it, and this is the web app version of, oh god, Maxie, I'm trying to be professional and you're pinging me, come on. All right, yeah, so this is the main desktop version. This is the Mac version, but the Windows version looks very, very similar. And this is my personal team, so it's just what I use for my stuff. And then you can see there's team projects, which you can favorite and unfavorite, and then there's team members, and you can invite more team members. And then there's an admin dashboard, and you can see pricing and stuff. Yeah, what's up?
Am I the only person who can see no screen?
You can't see a screen?
No.
I can see it.
It's showing that it's. Oh god.
Is it just me, or is it?
It might be just you.
I can see it.
Are you looking on Hangout?
It might be just you.
Twitch?
I can see it on Twitch.
On both. Twitch to me says going live soon.
Oh, well, I think that's the problem on your end.
Yeah, that's really weird.
Because it's live for me.
Twitch is working for me.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I just reloaded it. It's working now.
Okay, sweet.
But Hangout's not showing it.
We can follow along on the stream then. It will be a little bit delayed, but you should be able to see what's going on.
Yeah. Just hop over to the stream. That should be fine. I think it's a little delayed, but it shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah. So that's the a main project screen or main a team member screen, and then you also have a personal area as well where you can put anything that you don't want to share, or you want to share with specific people, but you don't want to share with your whole team. As you can see, my work uses this, so there's stuff down there. But we won't get into that because NDA. So up here is my personal stuff, which I could totally share. And we are going to go into this libraries folder. And this is the first projects that I have. And it also shows here on the left. And this is where you can place your files. Now, something to keep in mind on a team is when you have other people on your team, they can see every project that you post in here. That means it's also posted or updated to everybody. So if you think about it in a way file management basically is no longer an issue because everybody has access to the files at the same time. And you can also see other people editing live while you're using it. So for example, at work, fairly recently, we had this major project we were all working up and gearing towards in this presentation we were making mock-ups for. And We had 6 people in the same document. There was most of them were just view only and were just giving us feedback and looking at things and helping us with copy. And then a couple of us were like filling in that copy or tweaking things over on a different screen or something. And it ended up, we did it all day on a call and it worked out super well. So that was super cool. But again, if you want to work on something on your personal folder, you can do that and then move it to the team folder when you're ready to share it or share a link with the specific person. So yeah, let's go ahead and hop into this first project. Any questions so far? Does this make sense?
Totes. Totes my goats.
Tight. Totes, right. Gnarly, sweet. Okay, cool.
It's cool. It's
I
really
hope
clean.
I'm not talking too fast. I'm trying to. I have a list that I'm trying to get through, and I know we only have like an hour, and there's a lot of cool stuff in here.
So it's a little extended for me now. I'm actually good for a little bit past. So if you go past, don't feel like you got to rush or anything.
Okay.
Somebody
sweet.
else is
All
actually picking up the person from the airport that I was supposed to pick up. So good to go.
Okay. Noted. All right. Oh God. All right. Libraries. First project. This is the one I'm going to show you guys just because it's easy to show you guys this, and then I'm also going to create a quick one with you guys. So this is the base library, and this is what I've been working on for the past few days. I've only been working on this for a couple days, but this is kind of what I want to work on towards a base library that I can use for multiple projects, and I can alter this library and then use those components to create more libraries. So basically, up here in the top left, there's different pages, which is kind of similar to how Sketch has different pages. And each one is titled something different. And then below this is, where you can see your basic components and your groups and such, similar to every other program that we all use all the time. So it's pretty straightforward. Up here in the top left, there's your tools. There are not that many tools, but they're pretty powerful for what they do. The pen tool is really interesting. I won't be going into that too much here because I haven't played with it too much. I'm personally a Illustrator fan, but I know a few people that use Figma a lot with the pen tool. And then, of course, there's the frame tool, which is kind of like artboards, basically. And then you can see there's different sizes like you can do in Sketch for different aspect ratios that are very common with UI design, but you can also do whatever you want. And there's rectangles and lines and etc. And then there's a text tool and a comment tool, which is interesting because this is where you can place a little comment. This needs to be cooler. All right.
So comments are really cool, but really quickly, can we talk about how damn comfortable Kevin looks right now? He's in like his burrito in a little blanket. It's great. Sorry, I totally derailed the conversation. Continue.
Okay. All right, so this is a comment, and these are shared across the team, so anybody can do a comment, including people who can just view. So, yeah, and then you can add as many comments to a comment, so you can kind of have a thread going on a specific issue, and people get emailed or not emailed depending on what they want to show.
Color code these,
so you can keep updated on the comments.
Can you color code these? Or is it just like one?
No, it's only orange, although there's a difference between resolved and unresolved. So when you resolve them, they kind of gray out, but that's the only difference.
Okay.
But a resolved comment is like, okay, we figured out the issue, we are done with it. And then it also keeps a log of all the resolved comments. So you can go back and see what you've done.
Sweet.
But yeah, there's no way to color code. But you do see who left the comment. So when you click on it, it shows who and when.
Yeah, how do you normally go about organizing like different groups of comments? Like, let's say one is like implementation, one is design, one is feedback.
It's really not that extensive of a comment system. It's yeah, it's definitely just a really quick sort of way to add comments. I wouldn't try to, do anything super serious with it as far as prototyping and trying to convey that sort of information. But there is prototyping within Figma. And we'll get to that.
Gotcha.
Again, there's so much in here. So anyway, that's the basic comments tool. And then over here on the right, you can see the basic kind of tools you would expect on, like, again, Sketch, Photoshop, that sort of thing. And they're context sensitive. Sorry, they have different different things like text, fill color, stroke color, export options down here on the bottom, so you can export just what you're selected, or you can select a whole thing and export everything. And you can add different export options. This is, again, something that I think if you really want to get into Figma, probably want to check this out yourself, because it's gets kind of in depth, as you can add suffixes and different settings, etc., etc. So yeah, that's the basic UI as far as like design mode goes. If you go over here on the right, any questions? Okay.
Oh, actually, I do. Really quick. Are there shortcut keys for like the web, or is it only for the desktop version?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Do they have shortcut keys or anything like that for the web version?
I'm not sure if they show them, if they work on the web version. It's free to download it, so I would say if you really want to get into it, I would just download it. It's not a very big application, and it's entirely free. You can pay for it and have like your own personal team library and stuff, which is what I do, but the free app is totally functional. You know, I used that for a long time.
Cool.
Anyway, any other questions on this so far? Yeah. So we'll poke over here to the prototype. This I haven't used too much because my team uses InVision. So this is, again, something I wish I knew more of that I could share with you guys. But it's a way to use prototyping kind of like you can do in InVision with Figma, all embedded, which is really cool. But one thing my team uses a lot is the code tab. So this is viewed on view only, and you can see all of the different things you would need as far as a programmer goes: the style, font style, you know, family size, etc. Or if it's a line, it'll show you the line width and fill color. It'll show you if you click on it and click. I think it's like that. I use my other keyboard for this usually. Yeah, you can see different spacing if you hit Command. So you can see that this one is 31 pixels above that, it's 51 pixels above that, and that's really helpful. And there's different view types as far as CSS view, or if you want to do like iOS or Android, you can see those styles as well, including the code version and the table version. So super cool. Our programmers seem to like this a lot. I think they mostly use this view, so they can check up on the mockups and make sure they have the right colors, etc. Yeah, so that's kind of a cool little tool. Over here on the left, you see we have all these things, like I said. Now, something that Anders pointed out is that he doesn't like how these are labeled. Which is fine. It can get a little confusing, but I think once you get the hang of how they're labeled, it makes a lot more sense. And I think I'm going to move on into explaining how components work, if that is okay with everybody. But I think that's kind of, yeah, hooray! Okay, so we'll start with the most basic component that you have, which is like for UI is text or something like that. Trying to figure out what style of text you want to do. Basically, whenever you want to make a component, you just open up the type tool and then you say hello, and then you can either right click on it and create a component, or there's a hotkey for it, and that's the component. To make a component. And now this component is like a symbol with sketch, in which it's posted to our library, which then forwards any changes to the master, which is this one, to any children of that. So any changes I make to this will be reflected like here and here. So if I change this to be a different fill color, all of those change with it, which is pretty cool. But you can also do more things, like if you change the color on one of the children and say, let's make it bright red, and then I change this one, it'll only change the ones that I didn't change, but it'll retain other changes. So if I bold this, it'll bold everything. If I make it thin, it'll make it thin, but it won't affect the change that I directly made to this, which makes it super helpful as far as like text goes. For example, align things differently, and it still lets you update it, which is great. So this is all the text that I need for everything. Those are all my text components. Button styling, link styling, fields, labels, link cover, which I don't even really need here. So there's only 3 headers. And if I ever need something like a black header, I can just make that specific one black and then keep the other ones light. So yeah, I think that's one of the main benefits of Figma over Sketch. Is there any questions as far as how text is managed within Figma? It's really straightforward, I feel.
Yeah, there's not really much to it. I mean, it's pretty similar to what all the other things are. One question I have, does it kind of like copy over, like, let's say, like drop shadows and other styles, or is it mainly just like text styles?
Oh, it copies every style over. So anything you do to this, if you have, say, one thing that's really useful is if we're making avatars for a website, what we do is we'll add, one thing you can do is add a bunch of fills to one object, which is super helpful. So you can add a bunch of images, for example, to one object. And what we do, let me see if I can find some random images. Oh God. Okay, I don't really want to like dig around for random pictures, but we add a bunch of profile images here and then just hide the ones that we don't need. And then, so every time we want to make a bunch of different versions of it, we can have like different layers. Like this one, we can show that one, and this one we can, you know, have different filled, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
Nice. So this is probably how you guys handle something like overrides in Sketch. So in Sketch, you can have like a symbol, and if there's another symbol that's like the same size, you can override it. And I imagine that that's your guys' way of handling overrides.
Exactly. So you can hide and unhide things within within components. Nice. So we can have, let's say, if you have a forum or have a line that some of them have some icons and some of them don't have that icon, you can have it just hidden in the master and only show it whenever you need it for that row. Which is, it can become really powerful if you think about what you can do with that. Because you can, for example, have it so you can have, let's say, one version of a row like this, and then you make this a component. But you can also, from that, stack a few of them on top of each other and have it so this one is like different things, and then make this specific separate thing a component, right? So now we've made a component out of these, but every time, or if you look in this one, there's now 2 different ones, but you can have 2 different versions in the same component.
Oh, nice.
Does this make sense? This is kind of complicated. This is where it gets a little bit interesting as far as what you can do.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though.
Questions? Sorry.
What's up? Why are you laughing?
I feel bad. I feel like this is complicated and I'm just like whizzing through it.
Oh, no. This is great. This is good. I mean, you're kind of giving an overview, and a lot of this is new to a lot of people. So I think getting like a very broad view of like what you can and can't do, even if you're getting into kind of more complex behavior, I think that it's good.
All right,
it's good to kind of like touch on it.
Yeah.
I think
for sure. I just wanted to like, and again, I want to reiterate: if you want to mess with it, just go download it. You know, it's something that you can just do. And there, if you just Google Figma, I think I sent a link in the Slack channel a couple times. But yeah, so we use this at work sometimes for creating, like, say, I know some other designers get a little lazy with repeating a component a bunch of times and not changing the information. So when I go to put it in a vision, it looks really samey. And then when we try to user test it, people are confused by the repeating content. What I can do is make a component that has all of the different versions or a few different versions of the same thing stacked on top of each other that are all still related to the parent component. So I can change one parent, but also have it so it changes in all of the different versions. So I can have them have a bunch of different versions of it without losing the component.
Gotcha. Cool.
So it ends up being super helpful. Yeah, and again, one other side note, there's versions and version control within Figma. So you can go back to different versions of the document. Say if I went back here, this is the first version of this library. It's from February 10th. I guess that was yesterday. But I can either restore this or I can duplicate it. So I can either bring this back to where it is now, or I can duplicate this to another version of it and grab what I need. Or I can, actually, I thought I can, never mind. Yeah, so I can duplicate it or restore it. This is helpful at work. If somebody comes in and it screws up your stuff, you can be like, whoa, let me go back to my version of it and duplicate it and then, show them why I didn't want to do it that way or something. Cool.
Oh, nice. So is there descriptions in that version control? I missed the very first half of that really quick.
No, there's not really descriptions. It shows you the last person who edited it, and it shows you the time. And then if you click on it, you can preview the document.
Okay. Cool.
So you look at it here, like this is another older version. Here's the first version of it. And then you can either restore this, or I could click duplicate. And now I have another version of the base library that is that older version. But I didn't change my first version.
Very cool.
Yeah, so that's something that definitely you need, considering other people can change your stuff. So you can kind of go back and say, oh, whoa, no. So very helpful.
I feel like that's like the holy grail of design right now, is like everybody's trying to figure out version control, because it's just
and
sorry,
managing files between people. You don't have to worry about managing files between people because there isn't other files between people.
Yeah.
So yeah, we find it really, really helpful. And we can also, I'm going to click this share button. You can click the link to share it with anybody, and you can decide who can view or remove the people. You can have people who can view or edit, or who are an owner, which can also do anything to the document, including delete it. So usually I just click can view. And anyone at my company, or at my quote-unquote company, can view this file, or anybody at my work can view this file if I was at my work library. And you can also move the project to different libraries. So for example, if it's in your personal folder and you want to work on it, and then you want to share it with other people later, with your team later, you can decide to move it to your team folder after you've worked on it for a while. Or you can share a link to your manager and say, oh, hey, can you look at this really quick before I share it with everybody? That's also an option.
So where does that go when you save it? Like, is there like some sort of internal Figma structure that they have, like a file system?
Yeah, it's within Figma. There is no file. This main folder is the file system.
Gotcha.
And then this over here, I guess, and this is the different projects, and different projects are like folders, and different folders have different aspects to them.
Okay, yeah. That makes
so
sense.
There's some drawbacks to that for sure, as far as some things go, but there's some benefits to it as well. And something to note really quick here, there's sketch import. So if you want to mess around with this and dump a current sketch file in there, you can just use that and mess around with your file in Figma. That might be a good way to do it.
It should just be like a middle finger or something.
Yeah, there you go. Right?
They're like, get rid of the sketch. Just import that shit. Use Figma.
Get the fuck out of Sketch. Get up on in here on Figma. All right, sweet. So this is, let's see, what else do we want to show here? Buttons. All right, this is going to be a good way to show how components retain constraints. So, like on this button here. So this is a button I made. It's 30 by 83 right now, because that's just how wide the text is. But basically, I have this set within the bigger button, and this is, this is the button text component. And then basically it's set 10 pixels in on each side, and it's set to the stay left and right. So if it gets smaller and smaller, it constrains on itself. Now this can be super great when you get into things like forms. So like this form, for example, I'll just keep it here. This divider is set to stay on the left, so you can have this say become a drop down with a field next to it, and have the field still be flexible with the text and staying with the right amount of margin on the right without moving the left drop down. So this can become even more powerful if you do things like tables. So if you want to, say, make a rectangle, add a stroke to it, and then add a line somewhere in the middle. Say, let's see. Yeah, we'll add 2 lines in here. Great. Now, if I make this whole thing a group, and then set this to constrain to, let's try to find this one line, to the right, and the other one is constrained to the left. Theoretically, it's both left and the right, in the middle, but the chains on the left and the right. Header, like if you know that this row is going to have like a number that you know is only going to be so long, or a name that's going to be so long, but you know the middle row is going to be a longer piece of text, you don't have to worry about that. Or charts and tables as well scale in a similar way, so you could have a table that always retains a certain spacing on the top, but doesn't change the amount of spacing that is if you make it smaller or larger, for example. So yeah, it's pretty neat. Is any questions on that?
No, that's pretty cool.
Sweet. I'm sorry. I hope this isn't boring.
No, this is
Golly
good.
gee. Okay. Sweet.
I think sometimes presenting stuff it can kind of feel a little bit dry, but I'm sure everybody's enjoying this because this is all. I mean, I don't think a lot of people have exposure to Figma, so this is already pretty cool to kind of like just dig in and dive in because there's not a lot of resources in general about it. So
yeah, it's not as well or as widely used as Sketches.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone uses Sketch, but I feel like this is much stronger of a program for teams, and I feel strongly about that because there's ways to use it with a team. When with Sketch, it's not. There's no way. It's closed to just you. So yeah. Let me see what else I want to show you within this forums thing. I think that's it. Oh, one cool thing. You can duplicate like libraries. So if I duplicate this base library, I can now have another library that still retains all these as master components rather than children components. So let me try to find it. Yeah, so for example, if I wanted to make if I had a new project with a new type of style, I can copy my base library and just start from scratch. Or update these ones, and it'll make a new library. And it'll make a new folder within my library. So that's pretty cool. So let me show you the left side here. Down here, these 2 other buttons. So there's a few things that I changed within these components while we've been messing around with them. And up here, there's a new button that's popped up called Publish Changes. If I click that, it'll show me every single component and what the previous version looked like and the new version looked like. And I can scroll through it and make sure, okay, that's correct, that's correct, that's correct. they're like, oh shit, I did not mean to update that one over there. Or, oh god, that text field now is too short, and now that whole other row that I made later using this text is all screwed up.
I think Kevin
you know that before you commit it.
Kevin, you got a question?
Question. Yeah. So who has control over that, over like authorizing that? Can you set like a person to have control over it, or does it everyone?
You have people who have specific control over, basically people who can edit everything within your library can control this. So all the designers on my team can control this. So this is one thing that, like, let's see, for example, a few weeks ago, somebody changed something and it forwarded 89 changes to the library, or it had a thing that was like, publish 89 changes, and we were like, what? No. So we looked through all of them just to make sure, like, to see what was going on. But the cool thing is, because there's version control, if we looked at this and we thought, oh god, there's things we didn't want to do here, we can just back up the version before we commit the library. So yeah, there's definitely some trust you have to have with people, though. So that is something to consider.
Cool. Can I ask an unrelated question?
Yeah.
So you know how you mentioned with the file, when you're like saving files, and you're like within Figma, which means that you could work on them like through the web app or desktop, which I assume means that working from home, my problems are solved because it means I have all my files.
Yes.
But what happens if I don't have an internet connection? Can I still actually use it?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
So there's something to consider. Although I believe it saves locally the latest version of your files, so it won't forward changes live and it won't accept new changes, but you can still access it.
Okay, cool.
But only if you have the desktop version and you've worked on it before.
So you basically have to have that file open prior.
You have to have had it open somewhat prior.
Right.
I don't know what time it is on that. I know that I've definitely opened up a file when I was like at my boyfriend's house or boyfriend's parents' house without connecting to their internet and like worked on it in Figma. But I don't have a number on far as how long ago. I think I worked on it like previously that day. So yeah. Sorry. There's another drawback, I guess, because of the online nature of it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can't see it being a huge issue for most of us, because if we use it at work, there's usually internet. It's just the odd one where...
Yeah, every now and then I could see that. I mean, you could also... I know that my coworker he connects via his phone. He uses a hotspot on his phone on the bus in the morning. And it's funny because we can, like, see him doing stuff and working, knowing that he's, like, sitting on a bus driving down the highway. Because you can see everybody's cursors when you're in here. You can see what they're clicking on. You can see what they're moving around if they have edit privileges, or you can see what they're viewing if they only have view privileges. You can even click on their circle up here and look at what they are looking at. So if my boss pops in sometimes, I come in and I look at what they're looking at just to see, like, oh god, what's he checking? What did I fuck up? So that's a handy little feature that allows you to kind of spy on people a little bit. Or what we can do is we also mess with my coworkers sometimes. Like if someone's working from home, we'll have my boss, like my boss of the company, come over and he'll look at something and you'll see somebody else working on it. And he'll start messaging that guy like while he's working on things, just like, hey, can you make that bright pink? And just like see if he says anything. It's really fun anyway. So these are the goofs and gaffs that we have at work because we're really exciting. So other things that work with this, icons work within components. You can also, like I was doing earlier, you could stack 2 of these on top of each other and make this a like star icon component. And then you can hide the filled version. So if you ever needed a star, you can always have both the filled in and the unfilled version. And then you could put that, within another component if you're trying to make like a list of stuff. So, yeah, heavy.
It's pretty cool that you have that at like such a surface level too. Mm-hmm. It's cool that it's exposed at such a surface level too, because it's like I think in Sketch you have to like kind of dive down a few levels before you can kind of get to that kind of stuff. Like you have to double click the symbol, unless you're using overrides. I think that's the only other way that you might be able to do something like that better. But, yeah,
I feel like it's managed a lot easier here, and it definitely feels a lot quicker to make components. I know I keep using like making a list of things. I feel like listings or using repeated objects is done pretty commonly in design and UI design. So if you have something like that, it's really easy to make a bunch of them, and you feel like you can just do that on the document. And if let's say this document itself, with all these pages, this base libraries document is specifically published to the library, but other documents that I make aren't until I specifically publish them. So what I can do is make a new document, and then I can just make like an iPhone 8. Great. So I can access my component here, team library button. Let me go over to my team. So I've got the space library right here, and that's this, which is pushed to the library, and I can, let's say, I want to make a list of great movies. Sure, this movie is Arrival, which is a great movie. I can just group this and make it a component. Now I have this component here, but it's not published to the library. So this component is not accessible if I make another document, if that makes sense. So it's kind of a component that lives within this document itself until I publish it. Any component only lives in the document until you publish the document to the library. So it allows you, like, if you know only on this page you're going to need this specific thing, you can just, like usually on the top of all my documents, I'll have a few components that kind of hang around that I use throughout that, document or throughout that website or whatever. So yeah, I feel like I'm trying to think of what else I want to cover here. I feel like yeah, this seems it's pretty easy, which I think is one of the great benefits of the program too. That it's pretty straightforward. And I think it's much more straightforward than maybe Sketch can be at sometimes.
Yeah, so maybe let's open it to questions, and maybe if you guys want to compare, like, I know one of the big questions is going to be, like, right off the bat, it's going to be Sketch versus Figma. So maybe talking about like some of the strengths of Sketch and some of the strengths of Figma, because I know that you kind of watched some of the stuff we did in Sketch last week, and I'm sure other people have questions too. So let's maybe leave it open to any questions in general that anybody might have, and then try to compare the two and see how they look.
Yeah.
Does that sound good?
Go for it.
Cool. So does anybody have any questions or comments?
Oh, read-write permissions? Okay, that's a comment in the Twitch chat.
Okay.
So cool. You can, when you send a link, when you share something with somebody, in the top right, you can either have them, you can either send the invite as a view link or an edit link, and that's kind of the permissions. And once somebody signs into the account, like I shared this document with George earlier, he only has view settings, but I can change just George's settings to edit if I want to, or if I think he has edit privileges and he's getting crazy with it, I can downgrade him to only view privileges. So it makes it pretty easy.
Nice.
So all my programmers only have view privileges, for example. So they feel comfortable clicking around and doing whatever, knowing they literally can't change anything. So.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So for example, like we use InVision at work, and it's for the code part that I'll send to the developers. But the only problem with using InVision is that that person has to basically create an account with InVision to be able to see the code part.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you have to do on here too? Like if I send this to a developer, to our developer, they have to create an account to see the code?
Let me show you. So I'm going to go ahead and pop a link in the Twitch chat to a document that I just made. This is an edit-only link. So if you have an account, you should be logging in there. But you can also see in the top right on my screen, you can see all of y'all logging in. There's Kevin. There's also an anonymous person, which I'm assuming is somebody who doesn't have an account. And I can click on Kevin and see what he's looking at. And click on anonymous, see what they're looking at, and it says observing anonymous. How scary. There's Kevin moving his mouse around. And he can look at stuff, he can click stuff. So yeah, let me know what you can see. I'm pretty sure you can look at the code stuff, but you might not be able to until you have an account.
This is one thing that's super exciting to me. That's pretty awesome.
Hmm? This is cool, right? And imagine, again, this is what we were doing when we were working on that huge document. It had like, what, 10 screens on it, and there were 6 of us working on it, and there was no problems. You know, it was super smooth all day.
I could see this with like a super rapid prototype where you're like working with people like on the fly working.
I mean, that's what we were doing. That's we were putting a prototype together to present it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And I mean, it was super great because we could send the link to, say, some people that we knew that worked at the company that we wanted help with copy from, that we wanted to like use, you know, appropriate lingo for the mock-up. So we just sent them a link, and you know, it was kind of an older woman who had no idea how to use the stuff, but she just clicked on it and it worked for her, and she was able to look around and use it without having to mess around with downloading the program or, you know, looking at screenshots and having to compare them back and forth. And she was able to look at, while I was typing, she was able to like say, oh, you made a typo right there a couple words ago, and I was able to go fix it, you know. So
it looks like as a non-user or non-signed-in user, you can't see the code.
All right, well, there's a bummer. So you do have to make an account.
Okay. I mean, that's not a big deal, but just...
Yeah, well, the accounts are entirely free. So, yeah, like I think our devs all have accounts. And they're all added to our team, but they can also be added to the team as view-only team members. So they can see all the documents or specific documents that we link, but they can't edit anything. So, yeah. We find it pretty great. They also have the export ability. If you like it for InVision, what we do, we can export it and add the @2 suffix, which allows it to be Retina ready for Figma or InVision. Sorry. So you just export all the artboards at once and @2, and then we drag and drop them into InVision. Makes it pretty easy. But again, prototyping in here, I kind of wish we did it in here because it would make my life easier not using InVision because I hate InVision. But, you know.
Yeah, I'm actually
surprised. Do you like it? What do you think about InVision?
No, I'm saying I'm actually surprised you guys don't prototype in there because it'd be much easier.
Yeah.
Building on InVision sucks. And that's why I'd use Sketch, the craft tool, which I can build the prototypes within Sketch. It's a whole lot easier. So this right here, when you prototype, it's the same thing. You just click on the button, then you click the next page.
Yep. And it's you can share the prototype link and stuff. I don't know. I think I wish we used it, but we don't. Yeah? 1 second. Mm-hmm.
Did we lose a Martha? We lost a Martha. Martha?
Sorry, I have roommates. 1 second.
Oh, we found her. Cool.
Okay.
Oh, and she's
sorry. Hello, I've returned.
Martha. Okay. I have 2 baby questions. Mm-hmm. So you know how there's Sketch import? Is there also a Sketch export?
There's not.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
This is the saddest thing for me. Yeah. Because I really wish I could put it back into Sketch. I wish I could put it into Sketch and put it into Principle.
Yeah. So that's very convenient. So I use Principle for animating, which requires a Sketch file. Do you do any animations that are like because Envision's quite like blocky, like click-through sort of stuff. I don't really do any like hover states or transitions in that one. Do you guys mock up any smoother transitions in any other program that would go well with Figma?
We currently don't have a way to do that. We have a pretty small team, so we don't usually do animations. So we don't really have time. So I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer to that. I'm trying to see if I can figure out a way to do it. I haven't really spent too much time with it, so there might be a good way to do it that I just don't know. But I believe you can grab every component separately and then export them as separate components. So that's an option, but that does become a little cumbersome. So like with this, I would probably grab all these and separate those out if I was making a list, and then I could animate these separate objects. Any other questions I can answer about Figma?
Anyone else?
Any other questions? Sorry. Being a weirdo.
Nothing? Okay, so maybe we talk about the advantages that you see of Figma versus like Sketch, especially seeing last week all the trouble that we had.
For sure, yeah. So I think the main problem I have with Sketch that I don't understand how people put up with it, and it's just like nobody complains about it but me, and I don't get it. Or Anders has been complaining about it recently, but text management in Sketch is like a disaster. Like, I don't understand how people cope with it, to be honest. It just seems like a nightmare, especially on a team. Like, I can't even imagine trying to manage a library like that with all those different styles of text within one document. It just seems like a lot to go through. If you want different alignments and different, styling. So I guess there's my main gripe with Sketch. It's a UI program, right?
Yeah.
So like text should be managed better.
Yeah, so it's mainly like how it inherits its styles is kind of how you like Figma a little bit better than Sketch.
Yeah, definitely. I think the style forwarding, retaining any differences that you've made while still changing the things that are the same is super helpful. So, even if you're changing a bunch of different versions of, again, making a list of stuff or making a few different, like a navigation header and you have a few different nav items, you can have one component that's a nav item header and then have different versions of it. And then you can just have it so you bold the one that you clicked on. Or you can have it so there's a hidden version underneath that nav component that's selected. So like, actually, I can just use something within my library. I'll use the label component. There's a search too, so you can search within the library. So usually what I'll do if I'm looking for something like text, I can look up text and it'll show me all of the text options. If I want to look up just body text, it'll show me the body ones. So blue, I can look up and find this blue pattern that I add to the library. Yeah, and it's visual, so you can see what you're doing. Another thing that I think Sketch lacks is a really nice way to search in your library for things. Because at work we have a whole bunch of components, and it gets kind of tedious to scroll through things and to try to find stuff.
Sketch Runner plugin?
Yeah, that's basically what you have to do. But you have to install a plugin. It's a $100 app, but you have to install a plugin to search your library. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't get it.
Figma question, sort of, about
yes.
Sketchish. So one of my gripes with Sketch is I really hate the symbols, which is why Andrews gets really upset because I like never use them because they annoy me. But like, so one that really bugs me is like when I have a button, so it's like rectangle with text on top of it, and I like got my padding nicely. I find that resizing is really irritating, so I had to install a plugin that fixed it. But do you find that like working with buttons is a lot easier in Figma? Because that is
yes,
a big switcher.
Let me show you my buttons section. All right, so I've got a buttons text styling, which is, let's see, here. It's on my text section. And let's see, within the design, I can have it constrain left and right. So the constraints are set to left and right. All right. So now if I go to the buttons component, this is now constrained left and right within this button. Let me see if I can, well, it should be at least. So I believe, oh, it's not doing it right. 1 second. Technical issues. We gotta figure it out. There it is. All right. Sweet. So fix that. Now I do this. It'll retain the proper margins on the left and right. And if I add more text, this is a wrong button. It'll keep the correct margins on the left and right. Or it should be anyway. So I think it manages a bit better. And also, if you wanted to say, have an outline on a button and then just change the outline color on this one, you can just change the color. And it still retains all the other aspects of the button. You don't have to like come up with a really janky thing like Anders had to do to make outlines of buttons different colors in different places. Or you could even have a stroke, another layer of stroke that is a different color, and then you can set this one to be, you know, error, and have the other one not be, and just hide it. And also within this, let me find like a fun image that I can pop in here, so I can show you guys the image management. So I think it's pretty neat.
Picture of Hubble, obviously.
Hmm?
Picture of Hubble, obviously.
I mean, basically, I just need to find the right one. Oh god, there's so many little pictures of Hubble. He's so cute. He's asleep right now. All right, let's go with this one. This seems pretty good. Where'd it go? There it is. Okay. I'm like an old person trying to figure out how to use a computer. All right, big ass picture of Hubble. Whoa. Okay, let's make this much smaller. All right. So I've got this cute picture of Hubble. They're like so adorable. But if I like scale it this way, it doesn't mess with it. It smartly crops things. Have it crop differently. So if I want it to just fit in here and not crop, it'll fit. If I want it to crop in a specific way, I can specifically crop it. Or if I want it to tile, I can specifically have it tile in a certain way. So for example, the pattern card that I have, these ones, this is actually just one small image, this image, that I've tiled in a specific way. Fit through here. And I can change the scaling of it too, pretty easily. So if I want to change the scaling on one specific object, I could for a different pattern. You can, let me go back to Hubble, he's the best. All right, so that's a lot of Hubbles, let's stick to one. So I could do a bunch of editing in here, which I don't know if Sketch has this sort of photo editing, you know, basic contrast, exposure, temperature, tint, highlights, and shadows.
Yeah, I honestly have no idea because I do literally everything that isn't UI in Illustrator or Photoshop and then save it as a PNG.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't think Sketch has that ability.
Sweet. Well, there you go. another thing that this could do is I just drag and drop this image, but because how Figma treats this, it's treated like any sort of other square object, so I can add fills on top of it. So I can add a very dramatic fill that is lightened, so we can have a nice little lighting, a cool little dramatic flare here. Maybe let's make it green. There we go. And then I can change this anyway in here, like you would expect in any of these programs. But I can add as many as I want, and I can hide and unhide them. So you're able to say tint colors if you want. Say this, make this color, and you can have a bunch of different ones. So it's I don't know. I think there's a lot more powerful things within this. These things you can add as many strokes as you want, effects. You can add as many drop shadows as you want to one object really easily.
How does it do with masks? How does it do with masks? Like, can you do like weird shaped masks?
Masks? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's masking. So let's see. Up here in the middle, it's kind of where you get the kind of, I guess, the pattern style things. I'm sorry, I'm sleepy. So yeah, you can use as a mask. And this, let's say, if you put the mask here, then you can mask, let's see. I think this is theoretically what you should be doing it. I don't know. Honestly, I haven't used the masks too much. So it might be something that you might want to look into separately. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I wish I was an expert in everything, but alas.
That was one thing that I don't think that I saw in Sketch. Like, I think you can mask stuff, but I don't know if you can do like weird shaped masks. Like if you just wanted like a blob or something. I might be lying.
Yeah.
And
I believe you can make any object a mask. So if you make a funky looking pen shape, say like that, I believe you can make this a mask. Yeah. So there we go. You can do whatever mask shape you want.
Nice.
And I'm not really sure how it works.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It might have to be filled or something. But okay,
yeah,
cool.
It's free.
Nice. So does anybody else have any questions? Otherwise, maybe we'll wrap it up at the last few questions and then...
Yeah, sounds good. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Nobody else? Cool. All right. Well, really appreciate you going on the stream and kind of showing us around and stuff. I'm sure a lot of people kind of benefited from this. We'll probably be able to upload this a little bit later too, because I am hopefully recording this. We'll see. This is the first time that I've tried to record on OBS, and I really have no idea what I'm doing. Like this entire basically stream has been like shoestring together. I have like no idea what's going on. But hopefully I did it right. Sounds like we're at least streaming. And you guys can sort of hear me now. At the beginning of the stream, it might have been quiet, but I think it's fixed now. So next time we should be good to go. But I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate everybody else kind of hanging out, talking with us and stuff too. So hopefully we'll keep doing these. I think it's pretty fun. I like it.
Yeah, thanks for hearing that, guys. Appreciate it.
Cool, cool. All right, guys. Take it easy. See you guys on the flip side.
Thanks, guys.
And join the channel.
Hi.
If you guys are watching this somewhere else on the internet. I don't know if you are, but if you are, join United Designers. We're awesome. All right, see you guys later.